Okay, places that 123s normally get soft, and that if you want to try to prove that it is a more solid car that you will want to take pictures of, or at least pictures that show these areas fairly clearly. Right here there is a seam between the fender panel and kind of the lower lip. It will commonly bubble right in there on both sides. The jack points around this hole, and honestly the whole underside of the rocker and where it meets the floor, the fender right above, well, if you were to take this trim off, a lot of times they'll be rusty under this trim and it will bubble up into the lower part, or the dog leg of this fender. The undersides of all of the doors, like where water will settle when it drips down through the window below the trim. You'd want to take pictures of at least some, well, preferably all the doors. They can bubble here as well. This little piece of trim sometimes is just kind of hanging on by a thread because they rust out under there. Here in the where the inner fender and the outer fender are spot welded together all the way up over the arch. And one place they are really bad about is right at the base of the rear fender arch, where it meets the trunk well on a sedan, or on the wagon it would be the rear well where the spare goes. In here where this freeze plug or this expansion plug is, and then the pinch weld right there beside the subframe where you can tell somebody has jacked it up in the wrong spot. That pinch weld and right in that corner is really bad about it. And then as you can see where those drain plugs are between where the floor pan and the rocker panel meet, if there's any cracks in the undercoating showing little rust stains coming through, that'll be an indication that there's been water in the floors. Now, sometimes it can be really, really minor and very easy to repair, but in the interest of selling the car, nobody's going to give you the benefit of the doubt that it's less rusty than it appears. So the more pictures that can prove it is or isn't, the better. And those spots are pretty much going to be the same on both sides. The fender, the construction of the body here behind the rear wheel is pretty much the same on a sedan and a wagon, and there's this little drain grommet there that'll get plugged up and hold water. So this part here being solid is a big plus. Under the hood you have the hood pockets. So if you can see the way under the pivot of the hood hinge, there's a drain that runs down, and on this side it runs down under the battery tray. So the water runs down there and then out under the battery tray. But organic matter, leaves and pine needles and stuff is really bad about building up under where this spring is at, and it will rust that out. And if it rusts it out enough, you will get water that runs down in this hood pocket and down into the floorboards, down through the cowl. And to maintain one of these, you need to make sure that you keep this cavity free of gunk to where the water can get out. Maybe the camera will lighten up a little bit to where you can see the drain passageway down through there. And it's the same on the other side. And then as far as wagon specific things, here's a nice crusty one. This getting soft, it's not as common for them to get soft here. One thing I have seen is right here at the corner. See the rust that's coming through under this piece of trim? Because water will sit in the corner of the body where the window weather strip here meets. I actually repaired this on both sides on a otherwise really nice wagon a few months ago. I pulled the glass out and repaired that and put new primer and stuff. But I was on the other side, I was painting this side of it because of a light collision. But on the other side, I didn't even have to spray any paint because it was all under the trim, so I just sprayed primer to seal it and make it stop rusting. And then the louvers here, where this is actually where the sunroof drain comes out. and dumps the water down the back end of the body. So right here, let me think. Yeah, right here in this area of the pillar on both sides, they can develop a rust spot, and it's a seemingly random rust spot, but it's because there is a kind of a tray welded into the inside of the D-pillar, and water will sit between the outside body shell and that tray and rust it out. And it's never hurts to take pictures of the hatch hinge pockets, because water can build water, and organic gunk can build up in there. I mean, you can see how this wagon is going. There's that really chronic rust spot. There's that really chronic rust spot. There's that really chronic rust spot. And that really chronic rust spot. So yeah, anywhere in those areas, like those are the trouble spots that if you want to have a good thorough ad to be good and transparent with the car, and even if it is a little bit rusty there, to just be legit with people so they don't wonder like what else you either don't know to represent or don't want to represent because it's not good. Like, to represent all of those right off the bat should bode well for it, because it will give people the impression that it's a good thorough ad from somebody that actually has an idea about the cars, that they're not just saying, oh, it runs and drives good, when it actually runs like shit, and they're actually chalking up massive, like substantial lack of tune-up to the fact that everybody says that these cars have a lot of turbo lag. They don't have a lot of turbo lag. I bought my wagon from a guy that he said, oh yeah, runs good. It was actually like completely wore out for the most part. It ran and drove, and I drove it home 400 miles from Atlanta, and it made it. But since then, that's been a year and a half and 30,000 miles. I paid $2,800 for it, and it's had a couple little rust spots pop up since then, but for the most part, it was solid, and it still is. I'm to the point now where I'm mostly done with the mechanical work, and I'm ready to start doing the interior and the paint job. I had a couple of paint repairs, and not all the paint matches, but and a couple rust spots I need to stop now because I intend to keep the car and keep it in good shape. But he told me, oh yeah, it runs good. It runs really good. It's in good shape. Yeah, well, not hardly. Aside from the interior being held together with Gorilla Glue and 3 different kinds of tape, the drive shaft U-joint went out on me on the way home. I've had to replace the CV axles, 1 rear trailing arm because it was bent. The motor has it's got a messed up valve because the air cleaner tubing had gotten screwed up, and it had sucked in part of the oil catch, the oil separator in the air cleaner. It sucked part of that in, ruined the turbo, which sent pieces of the compressor wheel into the motor and bent a valve, and it doesn't burn oil, and it gets great gas mileage, but it will not run smooth. And I just took the last adjustment out of the front exhaust, the number 1 exhaust valve, the last time I adjusted the valve, so I've got to find a head for it to redo and put on it before the clearance on that valve closes up again, and I run the risk of burning or dropping a valve. But anyway, like, the more thorough, the more pertinent, I'll say pertinent information you can give to these cars. X is good, X is good, X is good. And it's not just general stuff. It's not just, oh, the valves were adjusted, the oil, like specific things, like it is this and it is this. Like I'm saying with the body, that take pictures of the spots that are bad about rusting to at least show people what the car is. Because people can take pictures of a car that looks pretty as you fly by it, sitting on a classics lot. They can take pictures of it and show, oh, it's got a nice dash. People can replace dashes pretty easily if you can find a good one, especially black ones, because blue ones are way more rare. You can detail the engine compartment. You can armor all the tires and slather shiny stuff all over the seats. But that doesn't even begin to represent how valuable or how much of a mess you're getting into with buying a 123. So the more model specific things you can cover that are or aren't should make it that much easier. Because honestly, if somebody, and I'm this way, and all the moderators have a group chat, and we love to, you know, take a picture or an ad, like somebody will post an ad of a car on the group, and we'll kind of look at it, you know, based on the way, maybe the way they phrase it to represent it, or, you know, it's like one of these what's it's worth BS posts asking, what do you offer me? Well, number one, we don't allow that, and number two, you know, we kind of try to assess like what's it worth and what does he think it's worth. Somebody post a car that they're asking 12 grand for, and it's a $4,000 car because the paint doesn't match and everything's just all out of whack, and it's got a mismatched speedometer and a dash mat and just who even knows what, and the wheels have been repainted so they're shiny, but they're the wrong color. They're like a smoke gray instead of bright silver like they're supposed to be, and just none of that. Like, people just click on the ad and they say, yep, they don't know anything about these cars. They're just going to pass, or they're going to be way less likely to be interested because they are going to have a much harder time getting pertinent information out of the seller. Whereas if the seller really seems to know their stuff and can speak of, this car would have, like, these cars have issues here, 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 and here, and this one doesn't, that's gonna give them a lot more confidence in spending any more time looking into this car, because they can believe that the person selling it has any idea what they're talking about. But anyway, I hope this helps.